March 17, 1943. Lyon, France. The basement of Gestapo headquarters at Hotel Terminus, Rue de la République. Marcel Thibault stands motionless in the corridor shadows, listening to bootsteps echo on the marble floor above. His left hand grips a canvas tool bag. His right hand holds a brass key he filed himself 3 days ago. The key will open Maintenance Closet 7, which contains the central ventilation shaft that runs behind the safe room where Gestapo Obersturmführer Klaus Barbie stores intelligence files documenting every resistance network in southern France. Marcel is 46 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 138 pounds. He looks exactly like what he is, a locksmith who spent 23 years installing and repairing safes for banks, jewelry stores, and wealthy Lyon families. Before the war, his biggest concern was whether a client preferred a 4-tumbler or 6-tumbler mechanism. Now, on this Tuesday evening in occupied France, Marcel is about to commit an act of sabotage, so subtle that the Germans won't understand what happened for 3 weeks. By then, 18 Gestapo safes will be permanently jammed. Thousands of intelligence documents will be inaccessible, and Klaus Barbie will be screaming at subordinates who cannot explain why every safe in the building refuses to open. The technique requires no explosives, no dramatic pourwoi, nothing that looks like sabotage. Marcel is simply going to make the safes work incorrectly, exploiting a single vulnerability in German safe design that nobody outside the locksmith trade understands. The difference between a functioning safe and a permanently sealed metal box is one small component, approximately 8 millimeters long, that Marcel is going to modify in a way that appears completely normal until someone tries to open the safe 3 or 4 times. Then the mechanism will jam irreversibly. What makes this moment particularly dangerous is that Marcel shouldn't be here at all. He's not resistance. He's not political. He's a tradesman trying to survive occupation by repairing locks for whoever pays, including the Germans. The Gestapo hired him 6 months ago to maintain safe mechanisms at Hotel Terminus. They needed someone who understood the high-security safes manufactured by Fichet in Paris, the company that supplied half the safes in France. Marcel convinced them he was apolitical, concerned only with craftsmanship and payment. The Germans believed him because men like Marcel, quiet technicians focused on mechanical details, seemed harmless. They made a catastrophic miscalculation. They assumed that a man who opened safes for them would remain loyal. They didn't consider that giving a locksmith unrestricted access to their security systems while simultaneously torturing French civilians in basement cells was creating a weapon more dangerous than any partisan with a gun. Marcel's motivations are brutally simple. On January 12, 1943, Gestapo agents arrested his daughter Claire for distributing resistance newspapers. She was 19 years old, a literature student who believed words could fight fascism. They held her in Hotel Terminus for 8 days. Marcel heard her screaming during his maintenance visits. He filed reports on safe mechanisms while his daughter was being tortured 2 floors below. They released her on January 20th. She died on January 23rd from internal injuries. The Germans sent Marcel a bill for her detention, 47 Reichsmarks for room and board. That's when Marcel stopped being a locksmith who happened to work for the Gestapo and became a locksmith with absolute access to German security systems and nothing left to lose. He began studying the safes with different eyes, not as mechanisms to maintain, but as systems to destroy. He needed something untraceable, something that wouldn't implicate him, something that would cause maximum disruption with minimum risk. The answer came from his own expertise. Every high-security safe has a weak point built into its design. Not a flaw exactly, but a component that must balance opposing forces, security and accessibility. That component is the fence post, a tiny metal piece inside the lock mechanism that aligns the tumblers. Modify the fence post slightly, and the safe will open normally once, twice, maybe 3 times. But each opening creates microscopic metal stress. By the 4th or 5th opening, the modified fence post fractures, the tumblers misalign permanently, and the safe becomes unopenable without cutting through the door with industrial equipment. Marcel spent February perfecting his technique. He practiced on an old Fichet safe in his workshop, modifying fence posts, testing failure rates, measuring exactly how much metal to remove, so the failure appeared to be natural wear rather than sabotage. By March, he had a system that worked with 90% reliability. The modified fence post would survive 3 to 5 openings before catastrophic failure. Visual inspection revealed nothing abnormal. Even another locksmith examining the mechanism wouldn't notice the modification unless they measured the fence post with calipers. Now, in mid-March, Marcel is ready to deploy the technique. Hotel Terminus contains 23 high-security safes distributed across 3 floors. 18 are Fichet models Marcel maintains. 5 are German Kaba safes he doesn't service. His target is the 18 Fichet units, particularly the 8 safes in the intelligence section where Barbie stores files on resistance networks, informant identities, and planned security operations. Marcel's access is legitimate. His maintenance schedule requires monthly inspections of all safe mechanisms. The Germans expect to see him moving through the building with his tool bag, opening safes, checking tumblers, lubricating mechanisms. He's part of the infrastructure, noticed only when something stops working. Today's challenge is timing. Marcel needs to modify the maximum number of safes before anyone discovers the sabotage. Once the first safe jams permanently, the Germans will investigate. If they bring in another locksmith, if they examine the mechanisms closely, they might discover the modified fence posts. Marcel needs all 18 modifications completed before the failures begin manifesting. He calculated the timeline carefully. If Gestapo officers open their safes an average of once per day, modified fence posts will begin failing in 3 to 5 days. If he modifies all 18 safes today, they'll start failing nearly simultaneously, creating chaos. The Germans will assume a batch of defective components or stress from building vibrations, anything except deliberate sabotage. The boot steps above have faded. Marcel moves quickly down the corridor to Maintenance Closet 7. The brass key slides into the lock smoothly. He cut it from a wax impression taken 3 weeks ago. Perfect tolerances. The door opens silently. Marcel steps inside, closes the door, and switches on a small pocket torch. The closet is 2 meters square, filled with cleaning supplies and ventilation equipment. The rear wall contains a metal grate covering the main air shaft. Marcel removes the grate, exposing a dusty cavity that runs vertically through the building. This shaft is his secret highway. It connects to smaller ducts branching to individual offices. More importantly, it provides access to wall cavities behind safe installations. Most people don't understand safe installation architecture. Safes aren't just bolted to floors. Heavy safes, anything over 200 kilograms, are installed partially within walls for structural support. The rear portion of the safe extends into the wall cavity, where it's anchored to steel reinforcement beams. This creates a gap, typically 10 to 15 centimeters, between the safe's back panel and the finished wall surface. Access that gap from inside the wall cavity, and you can reach the safe's rear access panel, a maintenance hatch that allows locksmiths to service the mechanism without moving the entire safe. German security doesn't consider this vulnerability. They guard safe doors, ensure combinations are secret, post sentries in corridors. They never think about the wall cavities behind safes, because who would crawl through walls filled with dust and rats? Marcel would. Marcel has been doing exactly that for 6 weeks, mapping every safe location, identifying which units are accessible through wall cavities, determining the optimal sequence for modifications. Tonight, he's implementing the full plan. He climbs into the ventilation shaft, pulls himself upward 3 meters, then squeezes through a lateral duct barely wide enough for his shoulders. His torch illuminates brick and plaster. The air smells of old mortar and mold. He hears voices through the walls, German conversations about paperwork and dinner plans. Normal office sounds from people who don't know a locksmith is crawling through their walls about to sabotage their security systems. 15 meters of crawling brings him to the first target, safe number 7, located in the intelligence archives, 2nd floor, east wing. Marcel knows this safe intimately. Fichet model V42, manufactured 1938. 4-tumbler mechanism, combination lock with key override. The safe contains files on resistance courier networks, approximately 400 documents, according to an inventory Marcel glimpsed during a maintenance visit. He positions himself in the wall cavity behind the safe. The rear access panel is a 30-centimeter square of steel held by 6 bolts. Marcel removes the bolts carefully, setting each one on a cloth to prevent noise. The panel comes free, revealing the safe's internal mechanism. This is where 23 years of locksmith expertise becomes a weapon. Marcel can disassemble and service this mechanism in complete darkness if necessary. He's repaired hundreds of these locks. He knows every component, every tolerance, every potential failure mode. What he's about to do violates every professional standard he learned. Deliberately compromising security equipment is the locksmith's cardinal sin. But professionalism died when his daughter did. The fence post is located in the tumbler assembly, a small steel post approximately 8 millimeters long and 3 millimeters in diameter. Its function is to align the tumblers when the correct combination is entered, allowing the bolt to retract. The fence post must be precisely sized. Too long and the mechanism binds. Too short and the tumblers don't align properly. Marcel extracts the fence post using needle-nose pliers. In the torchlight, it gleams like silver. He places it on a small vise attached to his tool bag and begins filing. He removes approximately 0.3 millimeters from the base, where the post interfaces with the tumbler plate. The modification is invisible unless measured. It creates a weakness. The post will still function, but stress concentrates at the filed section. Each time the safe opens, the post flexes slightly. After 3 or 4 cycles, microscopic cracks develop. By the 5th or 6th opening, the post fractures completely, tumblers misalign, and the safe mechanism jams with the bolt extended. The filing takes 4 minutes. Marcel inspects his work with a jeweler's loupe, verifying the modification is smooth and appears natural. Satisfied, he reinstalls the fence post, closes the mechanism, and replaces the rear access panel. The entire operation takes 11 minutes. The safe looks untouched. The modification is invisible. Safe number 7 is now a time bomb. It will function normally until it doesn't, and when it fails, repairing it will require cutting through the door. Marcel moves to the next target. Crawling through wall cavities, he reaches safe number 11 in the operations planning office. Same procedure. Remove rear panel, extract fence post, file the weak point, reinstall, seal. 12 minutes. Then, safe number 14 in Barbie's personal office. 10 minutes. Safe number 3 in the communications section. 13 minutes. Complicated by awkward access angle. By 2200 hours, Marcel has modified 8 safes. His shoulders ache from crawling through confined spaces. His hands are cramped from precision filing in difficult positions. He's covered in dust and plaster fragments. But 8 Gestapo safes now contain modified fence posts that will fail within days. He still has 10 more to go. The remaining targets are distributed across different floors, requiring Marcel to navigate through ventilation shafts, wall cavities, and maintenance spaces that form a hidden network through the building. It's slow, claustrophobic work. Several times he hears German voices through walls, conversations happening centimeters away from where he's crouched in darkness. Once, he freezes as someone enters an office adjacent to the wall cavity he's working in. The German makes a phone call, complaining about paperwork delays. Marcel waits motionless, barely breathing, until the officer leaves 20 minutes later. By midnight, he's completed modifications on 14 safes. 4 remain, all located on the 3rd floor in the senior command offices. These are the highest priority targets. Safe number 1 in Klaus Barbie's primary office contains operational plans for raids against resistance networks. Safe number 2 stores informant files. Safe number 18 holds financial records and bribery documentation. Safe number 21 contains personnel files on Gestapo officers. Useful intelligence if resistance could access it. Marcel knows these final safes are the most dangerous to approach. The 3rd floor has increased security, more officers working late, irregular patrol schedules. But they're also the most valuable targets. Jamming these safes will disrupt command-level operations. He ascends through a ventilation shaft to the 3rd floor. The shaft is vertical, requiring Marcel to brace himself between opposite walls and inch upward. His arms shake with fatigue. At 56 years old, this kind of physical exertion is beyond what he's done in decades. But he keeps climbing because Claire would have been proud of this. She believed in resistance. She died for it. Marcel can endure cramped spaces and exhausted muscles. The 3rd floor wall cavities are cleaner, less dusty. These offices are prestigious, maintained better than lower floors. Marcel navigates to safe number 1, Barbie's primary operational safe. The rear access panel is partially blocked by electrical conduit installed after the safe. Marcel has to contort awkwardly to reach the bolts. His shoulder presses against rough brick. He can feel the cold from the exterior wall seeping through. The panel finally comes free. Marcel extracts the fence post and begins filing. This mechanism is newer, manufactured 1940, slightly different tolerances. He adjusts his technique, removing fractionally less material to account for the newer metal's properties. The modification takes 6 minutes. Reinstallation takes another 7 because the awkward angle makes bolt alignment difficult. 3 more to go. Marcel checks his watch. 00:37 hours. He's been inside the walls for nearly 6 hours. His body is screaming for rest. His hands are trembling from extended precision work, but stopping now means leaving the job incomplete, means some safes will jam while others function, potentially revealing the sabotage pattern. He pushes forward to safe number 2. The wall cavity approach is blocked by newer construction, a plaster wall installed during German renovations. Marcel can't access the rear panel without breaking through plaster, which would leave evidence. He makes a decision. Skip this safe, move to the remaining 2. Safe number 18. Financial records. Access is straightforward through an older wall cavity. Marcel completes the modification in 9 minutes. 1 more. Safe number 21. Personnel files. This safe is located in an office currently occupied. Marcel can hear typing through the wall, someone working late. He waits in the wall cavity, motionless, listening. Minutes stretch. His legs cramp from the confined position. Finally, at 01:23 hours, he hears a chair scrape, footsteps, a door closing. The office is empty. Marcel works quickly. Remove panel, extract fence post, file the modification, reinstall, close panel. 8 minutes. Done. 17 safes modified. 17 time bombs installed in the heart of Gestapo security systems. Marcel retreats through the wall cavities, descends through ventilation shafts, and emerges into Maintenance Closet 7 at 01:51 hours. He replaces the vent grate, exits the closet, and walks calmly through empty corridors to the ground floor exit. The night guard, a bored Wehrmacht private, barely glances at Marcel's exit pass. Maintenance workers leaving at odd hours is normal. Marcel steps into the Lyon night, cold March air sharp against his face. He walks 3 blocks before allowing himself to feel anything. Then the trembling starts, delayed reaction to 6 hours of intense stress. He leans against a building wall until his hands steady. Tomorrow, Gestapo officers will open their safes normally. The mechanisms will function. Marcel will return for his regular maintenance schedule, appearing concerned and professional. Nobody will suspect anything, but in 3 days, maybe 4, the first fence post will fracture. A Gestapo officer will try to open a safe, and the mechanism will jam. They'll call Marcel to repair it. He'll examine the mechanism, declare the fence post failed due to metal fatigue, explain that it sometimes happens with older safes experiencing heavy use. He'll tell them he needs to order replacement parts from Paris. Will take 2 weeks minimum. Then a second safe will jam. Then a third. Within a week, 8 or 10 safes will be permanently locked. Thousands of documents inaccessible. The Germans will panic, demand emergency repairs, bring in other locksmiths, but the damage will be irreversible without cutting through safe doors, a process requiring specialized equipment and days of work per safe. Marcel walks home through empty streets. The city is silent under curfew. Somewhere above, he hears a distant aircraft, probably a British bomber on reconnaissance. The war feels very large and very small simultaneously. Large because armies and nations collide across continents. Small because sometimes the war comes down to one man with a file and knowledge of fence posts. Klaus Barbie built his power in Lyon on information. He knows which families hide Jews. He knows which factory workers support resistance. He knows courier routes and safe house locations. All that knowledge lives in safes. Marcel just sabotaged. When those safes jam, when documents become inaccessible, Barbie's intelligence apparatus will be crippled. Raids will be delayed. Resistance networks will gain time to relocate. Lives will be saved because a locksmith filed 8 millimeters of steel in ways that compromise structural integrity. Claire would have appreciated the irony. She fought with words and ideas, was destroyed by violence. Her father fights with locksmith tools and patience, will destroy German intelligence operations without firing a shot. Marcel reaches his apartment at 02:30 hours. His wife Emily is awake, waiting. She doesn't ask questions anymore. She learned months ago that the less she knows about Marcel's activities, the safer she remains. But she sees the dust on his clothes, the exhaustion in his face, and understands he did something dangerous tonight. She hands him a towel and draws a bath. Marcel washes away the plaster dust and grime, watching gray water swirl down the drain. He's too tired to feel satisfaction or fear. Those emotions will come later. Right now, he feels only exhaustion and the certainty that he honored Claire's memory in the only way he could. 3 days later, March 20th, 1943. Sturmbannführer Heinrich Müller tries to open safe number 14 in his office at 09:15 hours. He enters the combination correctly, turns the key, pulls the handle. Nothing. The mechanism doesn't release. He tries again, still jammed. Müller calls maintenance. Marcel arrives within 20 minutes, tool bag in hand, expression concerned. He examines the safe's external mechanism, listening to Müller's description of the problem. "May I open the rear access panel, Herr Sturmbannführer? I need to examine the internal mechanism." Permission granted. Marcel removes the rear panel, already knowing what he'll find. The fence post has fractured exactly as designed. He shows the broken piece to Müller, explaining in technical language that metal fatigue sometimes causes these failures, particularly in safes experiencing frequent use. The component is small but critical. Without it, the tumbler alignment fails and the bolt won't retract. "Can you repair it?" Müller demands. "I need access to those files today. I'll need to order a replacement fence post from the manufacturer in Paris," Marcel says. "These are precision components, must be machined to exact tolerances. Normally takes 2 weeks for delivery. 2 weeks? Unacceptable. Break into the safe. Marcel shakes his head. Herr Sturmbannführer, this is a Fichet V42, military-grade security safe. Breaking through the door requires industrial cutting equipment, oxyacetylene torches, and approximately 8 to 12 hours of work. The heat will likely destroy documents inside. Mueller curses but accepts the situation. He files a report noting safe malfunction. Requests expedited replacement parts. Marcel promises to contact the manufacturer immediately. The next day, March 21st, safe number 7 jams, then safe number 11. By March 23rd, 5 safes are inoperable. Gestapo officers are panicking. Critical documents are inaccessible. Operations are delayed because intelligence files are locked in jammed safes. Klaus Barbie himself summons Marcel on March 24th. Barbie's office is elegant. French antiques looted from deported families. He sits behind a mahogany desk, studying Marcel with the cold evaluation of a man accustomed to breaking people. Explain to me, Thibault, how 5 safes fail in 5 days. Your job is preventing exactly this. Marcel keeps his expression professionally troubled. Herr Obersturmführer, I am as concerned as you. These failures are highly unusual. The Fichet V42 is a reliable mechanism. I've maintained these particular units for 6 months without issues. Yet suddenly they fail simultaneously? Not quite simultaneously, Marcel corrects gently. 5 failures over 5 days among 18 safes. That's approximately a 28% failure rate. Don't lecture me with mathematics. What's causing this? Marcel launches into a technical explanation he prepared carefully. He talks about metal stress, cumulative fatigue, how components manufactured during wartime sometimes have inferior metallurgy due to resource shortages. He mentions that increased usage frequency, more officers accessing safes more often, accelerates wear on precision components. He uses enough technical jargon to make Barbie's eyes glaze over. Can you fix them? Barbie interrupts. Not without replacement parts, Marcel says. I've contacted Fichet in Paris. They're experiencing delays due to Allied bombing disrupting manufacturing. The earliest I can receive fence posts is 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Barbie slams his hand on the desk. I need those files now. There is an alternative, Marcel says carefully. We could contract a metalworking shop to manufacture replacement fence posts from specifications. It would require precise machining, but a skilled machinist could produce adequate replicas in perhaps 1 week. Barbie seizes this option, arrange it immediately, use whatever resources necessary. I want those safes operational within 1 week. Marcel promises to handle it personally. He contacts a machinist in Lyon, a man named Philippe, who does occasional work for the Germans, but quietly supports resistance. Marcel provides specifications for fence posts, but includes a subtle modification. Dimensions fractionally incorrect, creating components that will function briefly before failing again. Philippe understands immediately what Marcel is doing. He manufactures the fence posts with the specified flaws, delivers them within 6 days. Marcel installs them, restoring access to the jammed safes. Gestapo officers express relief. Operations resume. But the replacement fence posts are designed to fail just like the originals. 2 weeks later, the safes jam again. And this time, 3 additional safes with original modified fence posts also fail. By mid-April, 13 of 18 safes are inoperable. Barbie is furious. He suspects sabotage but has no evidence. Marcel has been nothing but helpful, working overtime to address the crisis, contacting manufacturers, arranging alternative repairs. Visual inspection of mechanisms reveals no obvious tampering. The fence posts appear to fail from natural metal fatigue. Barbie brings in a German locksmith from Paris, a Gestapo technical specialist named Otto Krebs. Krebs examines the failed mechanisms thoroughly. He measures fence posts with precision calipers, checks tolerances, analyzes the fracture patterns. His conclusion: metal fatigue from inferior wartime metallurgy, possibly exacerbated by building vibrations from nearby train traffic. Krebs recommends replacing all safes with German-manufactured Kaba units, which he claims have superior quality control. The replacement process will take months and cost considerable resources. Meanwhile, thousands of intelligence documents remain inaccessible. The practical impact is devastating. Planned raids are delayed because target lists are locked in safes. Informant identities are inaccessible, leaving Gestapo unable to contact sources. Financial records are sealed, preventing payment of collaborators. The entire intelligence apparatus bogs down in bureaucratic chaos. Resistance networks notice the change immediately. Gestapo activity declines sharply in late March and April. Raids that normally happen weekly don't materialize. Courier routes that were compromised suddenly seem secure again. Resistance operatives begin moving more freely, testing the boundaries of German response. In Paris, Free French intelligence officers receive reports from Lyon agents describing the Gestapo's operational paralysis. The reports mention safe malfunctions but don't identify causes. Intelligence analysts assume sabotage, possibly explosives or acid attacks. Nobody suspects a locksmith with a file. Marcel continues his maintenance work through April and May. He repairs safes when replacement parts arrive, always ensuring the new components include his modifications. It becomes a sustainable cycle. Safes function for 2 to 3 weeks, then fail, requiring repairs that introduce new, flawed components. The Germans never escape the cycle because they never identify the true cause. By June, Barbie's frustration reaches a breaking point. He orders all Fichet safes removed and replaced with German units. The process takes 6 weeks and requires shipping heavy safes from Germany while Allied bombing intensifies. When the new safes finally arrive, they're Kaba models Marcel doesn't maintain. The Germans bring in their own locksmith, cutting Marcel out of the security system. Marcel doesn't mind. He's accomplished his objective. For 3.5 months, he crippled Gestapo intelligence operations in Lyon. Raids were delayed. Resistance networks survived. Lives were saved. The cost was some modified fence posts and a lot of crawling through dusty wall cavities. But Marcel's sabotage has one final consequence he didn't anticipate. The safe malfunctions generate enormous paperwork, reports flowing up through Gestapo command to Berlin. Someone in Reich Security Administration begins investigating whether the failures represent a pattern. They compare data from other occupied cities. Lyon is unique. Nowhere else are Fichet safes failing at comparable rates. In July 1943, a Gestapo investigator named Hauptsturmführer Wilhelm Brock arrives in Lyon with a mandate to determine if sabotage occurred. Brock is methodical, intelligent, not interested in torture or intimidation. He wants answers. He interviews Marcel multiple times. Marcel maintains his professional demeanor, expressing concern about the failures, offering technical explanations. Brock isn't satisfied. He requisitions all failed fence posts, sends them to a metallurgical laboratory in Berlin for analysis. The laboratory report arrives in August. Metallurgists confirm the fence posts show unusual wear patterns consistent with deliberate filing. The modifications are subtle but detectable under microscopic examination. Brock now has evidence of sabotage. On August 14, 1943, Gestapo agents arrest Marcel Thibault at his workshop. They bring him to Hotel Terminus, to the same basement where Claire died. Barbie conducts the interrogation personally. Marcel expects torture. He's prepared himself psychologically, knowing he won't survive, revealing everything he knows. But Barbie is surprisingly controlled. He shows Marcel the laboratory report, explains that evidence proves deliberate sabotage. He offers a choice: confess fully and receive a quick execution, or resist and experience the techniques Barbie has perfected on other prisoners. Marcel considers his options. The sabotage succeeded. Resistance networks gained months of reduced pressure. Documents were inaccessible during critical periods. Whether he confesses or not doesn't change those facts. He confesses. He explains the fence post modifications, how he accessed safes through wall cavities, why the technique was undetectable during normal inspections. He describes the filing technique, the precise amount of material removed, the stress concentration that caused delayed failure. He does not mention Philippe, the machinist, or anyone else who might have assisted. Barbie listens, occasionally asking technical questions. At the end, he seems almost respectful. "You understand you will be executed?" "Yes," Marcel says calmly. "Why did you do this? You're not resistance. You're not a fighter. You're a locksmith." "You killed my daughter," Marcel says simply. "What did you think I would do?" Barbie has no answer to that. He orders Marcel transferred to Montluc prison. The execution is scheduled for August 20th. Marcel spends his final days in a cell, strangely peaceful. He writes a letter to Emilie, explaining everything, telling her he's not afraid. He writes a letter to Claire that he knows she'll never read, telling her he honored her memory the only way he knew how. On August 20th, 1943, at 0600 hours, Marcel Thibault is executed by firing squad in the courtyard of Montluc prison. He faces the rifles calmly, thinking about fence posts and mechanical tolerances and how sometimes the smallest modifications create the largest consequences. The Germans bury him in an unmarked grave. They classify the entire safe malfunction incident, not wanting other resistance groups to learn that a locksmith caused such extensive damage. The files on Marcel's case are destroyed when Lyon is liberated in 1944. But the consequences of his sabotage ripple forward. Intelligence operations disrupted in spring 1943 create gaps in German knowledge that persist for months. Resistance networks that survived because raids were delayed go on to participate in the liberation of southern France. Lives saved in spring 1943 produce veterans who fight through the war's end. After liberation, Emilie Thibault tells Marcel's story to French authorities. She provides his letters, explains what he did. The Provisional Government of the French Republic posthumously awards Marcel the Medal of the Resistance in 1945. A small plaque is installed at his former workshop. Here worked Marcel Thibault, locksmith and patriot, who fought tyranny with precision tools and quiet courage. The plaque doesn't mention fence posts or safe mechanisms. It doesn't explain the technical details of his sabotage, but people who knew Marcel understand. He was a craftsman who spent decades opening locks, who used that expertise when it mattered most, who proved that resistance takes many forms. Sometimes it's soldiers with guns. Sometimes it's students with newspapers. Sometimes it's a locksmith with a file and knowledge of structural failure points. Claire Thibault died fighting with words. Marcel Thibault died fighting with locksmith tools. Both died believing France deserved better than occupation. Both contributed to liberation in ways large and small. The war remembers generals and battles. History should also remember locksmiths who modified fence posts in darkness, who crawled through walls to sabotage security systems, who turned professional expertise into weapons when everything else was taken away.